And it looks as though we are live. Yeah, right about 6 p.m. here on the Pacific Daylight Time on the West Coast. We are live from the Oxnard Police Department Police Station, downtown Oxnard. My name is Paul Carganilla. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for the Oxnard Police Department, and we are joined tonight by property crimes detectives, Detective Crystal Walker and Detective Greg Utter. Welcome. And
Hello.
we're going to just talk a little bit about their careers here with the police department and then jump into some live questions that you have um, here on Facebook. So if you are watching live on Facebook, you can interact with us there on the comments stream. And um, we won't be answering them as soon as they come in, so just be a little bit patient. But if you do have a question, we will get to it hopefully by the time this live stream is over. But if we are unable to, hopefully we can answer it at some point in the comments after we're done here. But yeah, I'm so thankful that you guys could join us here tonight. Detective Walker, Detective Utter. Um, Before we learn a little bit about you personally and your journey and your career through the department, let's talk for just a quick second about what the Property Crimes Division takes care of. What do you guys do on your day to day?
Well, for me personally, we go through all the cases. We do case review, and those cases consist of annoying phone calls, theft, any type of petty theft, grand theft, burglary. We also do criminal threats, as long as they don't involve a gun. We do restraining order violations, a lot of, again, property crimes. I mean, that's why we're named the Property Crimes Unit, but then we also have the and other duties as assigned. So that's our main thing, trying to identify these suspects of these crimes, going out, interviewing. We show lineups. Sometimes we get special details that where we, as a unit, go help out on crime scenes. We're also trained to go help out with other units if they need, like a homicide. If there's a homicide that occurs, we can go out and take those statements that a lot of people have, and because every little thing when a homicide is needed, so they need a lot of hands on deck.
Yeah, for sure. And so, how does one become a property crimes detective? But if you will, just go ahead and rewind all the way back to tell us in 5 minutes or less, Detective Walker, tell us about your career with the department.
Well, I started out in patrol. I was hired in 2002, and I worked in the property in the property room for a little while before I went to the academy. Graduated January 31st of 2003. So that's been uh, 17 years and still going. So first 5 years patrol. I was working to the busiest beats in the city, which were 22, which is the middle of the city, all the way up to Gonzales, all the way down to Channel Islands. And we changed the beats since then. But Doris, no, I'm sorry, not Doris. Ventura Road was one edge, and then the other edge was Oxnard Boulevard. So all of that, and I would work on weekends as the only female bilingual officer. So I got a lot of experience, which is great.
Wow.
Next 5 years, I worked in the Colonia. I was a district officer, and we did a lot of community outreach, along with if there were any crime trends that we needed to address that patrol officers couldn't take care of during their time on calls. Then we would go out and see if we could do something, and involved a lot of quality of life. And sometimes it just we call it CPTED, so crime prevention through environmental design. Certain areas were attractors for certain types of criminals. So we would go out and see if there was some way that we could change that and lower that particular criminal activity, and hopefully no more reports coming from that area. And then the next 5 years, well, actually, it's more like seven. I've been in the property crimes unit. I first started out as the crime prevention detective, and I worked some general assignment cases, but half of my job was in crime prevention. So I would go out and I would give talks about vehicle security, home security, personal security, business security, how not to be a victim of crime. And then the last 2 years, I have been working again, full-time property crimes. We don't have a crime prevention detective anymore, but the property crimes unit has kind of taken that mantle, and we are going out. And as you've seen us on videos and stuff, we've been giving away Ring surveillance cameras for people who answer questions about how to prevent crime in their area. So that's kind of where we are right now. And hopefully, I'm hoping before, the end of my career to move on to, a couple other different units, potentially get promoted and round it out. So
yeah. And so you started, you said 17 years ago in the property room.
I was in the property room. They had me there. They hired me early so that I could go to the academy. And I was only there for a couple months, and then went through the 6-month academy, and then graduated January 31st of 2003.
And was working for the police department, was that your first job?
No, actually, I had several before then, just like anybody else, retail or fast food. And right before I got hired with the police department, I was a legal secretary for a law firm in Encino. So imagine that drive. I was living here in Oxnard, and I was driving to Encino and back every day.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a commute.
A little one, yeah.
And so you were born and raised Oxnard?
No, I'm actually from San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Yes. My father was in the military, and this was his last duty station, because as a dependent, you could only stay with your family until you were 23 at the very latest. And so he actually dropped me off at El Toro base in Santa Ana, or actually it was Tustin. And I made my way up to Oxnard. And I want to say that was in 1999-ish. And then I applied to be a police officer here. I got it, and I've been here ever since.
That's really cool. Well, before Detective Utter gets up and walks away, let's go ahead and visit him. Detective Utter, tell us about your role in property crimes. Is this a new thing? Have you been doing it for a while?
So I've been in property crimes for about the last 6 months. Before I was in property crimes, I was an investigator for a family protection unit, I was primarily domestic violence investigator, and then would also assist crimes against children, sexual assaults, and things of that nature. So I've been in investigations only for about 1.5 years. I've been with the department for about 9.5 years. Graduated the academy in April of 2011.
Wow. And was being a police officer something you always knew you wanted to do, or did you have other jobs before?
No, this is what I've always wanted to do. I come from a law enforcement family. My father is retired law enforcement, as is my uncle and my grandfather. So it's kind of all I've ever known most of my life.
And are you liking the position that you have been serving in the past 6 months?
I love it. It's a great unit to work for. Affords me the opportunity to do a lot of different things. I can work cases as big or as small as I want. I've learned a lot in the unit, and learning to write warrants and how to do more in-depth investigations. And it's been a blast so far.
Very cool. Now the two of you together, well, I've got you before we start taking any questions that any viewers might have. What would you say? I'll give each of you maybe two. What would each of your top 2 tips be to our viewers to avoid being a victim or prevent being a victim of property crime?
Get a surveillance system. It's a deterrent, but if for whatever reason you become a victim, hopefully we can identify somebody off of the video that you have and you give to us. And also our biggest thing right now is stolen vehicles. Please don't leave your keys in the car. Don't leave your car running.
Yeah, so for me, I would say keep your personal belongings out of your vehicle. Don't keep things in plain view. If you're going to leave stuff, put it under a seat, put it in a trunk, lock things up, because when people see things out in the open, it's a lot more likely it's going to be taken. And then never hesitate to report suspicious activity in the neighborhood. I always tell people that your neighborhood better than anybody else. You know who should and shouldn't be there, and you know what looks out of place. And don't be afraid to report those things, because you may help us solve a crime or you may not. But either way, it really helps us do our jobs in trying to figure out who's out there and kind of what's happening.
And we've seen you guys on social media, on our Facebook and on our Instagram out there, giving out those Ring cameras when we can. And a lot of people have found, especially lately, in recent years at least, like the home surveillance that you mentioned, Detective Walker, is so important, and helpful. I know I came from dispatch, so I experienced a lot of people calling in and calling us because they saw someone they don't know at their door, or maybe someone they don't know even go inside their house and they weren't there. Um, but we also get a lot of questions. Like, since I kind of facilitate and run the social media for the department, uh, people send me messages with like their Ring photos of porch pirates, and and videos of suspicious people in their neighborhood. If someone has something like that and they want to send it to us, um, I would not suggest you do it through Instagram or social media.
No.
But tell us how they can send that to you guys.
Well, they can send it to our personal emails, or they can send it to the district coordinator's emails. All they really need is our name. So it would be crystal.walker@oxnardpd.org. Or if your district coordinator, like Maria Pena, Maria.Pena, it's always the same. There's the dot in between the two names, at oxnardpd.org, and you can let them know. Now, just because you send us the photos or the video doesn't necessarily mean we're going to investigate it. If you actually want an investigation, you want prosecution, or you need documentation, you need to make sure to either go online and make that report, or call an officer to have them take a report, and then we will receive it and investigate it as we can. And if you can give us those videos and those photos, that's gold right there, because otherwise it's kind of hard to ID somebody. There's so many people living in the city, and a general description can describe a large number of people. So those videos are gold.
That's great. All right. So we don't have a whole lot of questions coming in quite yet that are property crimes related. So we might have to go into a little storytelling from your career for a second. But um, before we do that, um, I don't know if either of you can speak to this, because it is an issue that we have been dealing it with for at least a month now, and it is something that it has been frustrating many people, not just in our city but in the county. And that is, like I said, it's not property crimes related, but the issue of fireworks in Oxnard and in the county. And so people want to know how they can report that. So I'm getting those stats for you, or I'm sorry, I'm getting those phone numbers and email addresses for you guys to report it. But why, since you guys, I know you guys are officers, you've been dealing with this for a lot of years, why do you think it is so, A, frustrating for people, and B, like, people ask, why can't we stop it? Why can't we put a stop to fireworks? What would you say to those people?
I think the first thing that I would say is just rest assured that we are out there. I've actually been working fireworks details the past couple weekends. In fact, I'm working Saturday night out there for that specific reason. We get that it's frustrating. There's just such a huge amount of it that it's hard for us to find everybody doing it. And typically, in order to address the situation with a specific individual, we actually have to witness them lighting off the fireworks or in possession of them. And as many of you guys out there may have seen, people typically light them off not at their residence in a street, and they're going to run away. The police department, I know that our neighborhood policing team, they respond to the hotline that I'm assuming you're going to post. They respond to emails. We look at specific residences that are known for having these issues. We send out letters. You guys may have seen posts recently where the Oxnard Police Department has been working with the Port Hueneme Police Department. They've gotten a substantial amount of fireworks to try to get those off the streets. I can say from a personal viewpoint, I worked the neighborhood policing team the last couple of years before I moved upstairs. We sympathize. It's very annoying, and when we sympathize, but the police department is out there doing everything they can to try to write as many tickets and confiscate as many fireworks as they can.
Yeah, and here is that information for you guys if you've got something handy, or you can screenshot that, and or take a picture with your phone real quick, there's our fireworks email that goes to. We encourage that you use that email address if you know like the address that they're coming from, or that's for like tips of like if there's an address in your neighborhood that's doing it every night, lighting them, setting them off every night, or if there is someone in your neighborhood that you know is like selling fireworks. This is really good information, and if you can be as specific as you can with the address. That's the same with the hotline. That's what Detective Utter just mentioned, is monitored by our neighborhood policing team. And if fireworks are going on at any specific time, and you know that there are people out in front of a residence or in the rear yard of a residence lighting them off, you can call our non-emergency dispatch phone number there. That's 805-385-7740, and patrol officers will go and attempt to catch and cite them in the process. And I know that the city recently, in recent years at least, signed an ordinance in which they can cite the homeowner of an address where they witness the fireworks coming from. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a social host ordinance that if we have evidence that somebody's allowing fireworks to be used at their residence, then the owner or the responsible person can actually be issued the citation.
Gotcha. And again, like, we know it's super frustrating for everyone, but using those methods to contact us about the fireworks are the best way. Whether you're reporting fireworks or anything really, if you report them through our social media, through Nextdoor or Facebook or Instagram direct messages, those don't necessarily become calls for service for police officers to respond to. So the best way is always to contact our dispatch, not necessarily like for just fireworks, but for anything that you want, any type of crime you want to report. If it's not an emergency, a life or death emergency that requires 911, our non-emergency dispatch line is always the best way to create a call for service and have police officers respond. Yeah, it looks like we don't have a whole lot of questions coming in. So if yours comes in next, it'll be at the top of the queue. Let's just talk about real quick, since we have a moment without questions. We'll start with Detective Walker. I'm sorry that like you're so on the spot with this and everything.
It's okay.
But, favorite experience on the job, or one of your top fives?
Oh, geez. You know, there's been so many because this city is amazing. Yes, you deal with some people that don't necessarily like you, but I've had more positive experiences. I'll just throw one out there. I live in the city, and I had gone to Bed Bath and Beyond. And this lady comes up to me and she's like, I remember you and I want to thank you so much. And I didn't recognize her necessarily because it's not that nobody's memorable. It's just there's so many people that we talk to. And it turns out that she was a victim of domestic violence. And it had been years since I had actually seen her and gone to her call. And what happened is that she had gotten beaten up by her, I want to say it was her boyfriend at the time. And she had no outlet. She had nowhere to go and nothing, no family. And we were able to hook her up and get her out of that situation. And he was arrested by California law. We have to do that. And she was able to get herself on her feet and get this job. And she was actually an assistant manager at the time. And I was like, oh my goodness, you've come so far. And it was just because that one contact. And then she recognized me and thanked me. And I'm like, sometimes when you go to these calls, you don't get to see the end. You just see right then that little snapshot, and you hope that everything turns out well, because you want to go back and see these things, but a lot of times you don't have the time or the information to find out. And in this case, I was able to know what the end was, that she actually got back on her feet, took care of her kids, and she had a job and she was on her own. She was doing well. So that was a good one. That was a really good one.
That is great. And I know coming from dispatch, like we have that issue all the time too. We're the first point of contact, and we're speaking one-on-one with the person who's experiencing being the victim of something. And a lot of times we never get to hear how it ended or the resolution. So that's very cool experience. Detective Utter, do you have a top memory on the job?
It's hard to pick out one top memory. I think my favorite thing about the job has always just been creating the relationships with people on the street. Just different residents, different neighborhoods. Before this, when I was a part of the neighborhood policing team, I got to know a lot of people in the Beat 24 neighborhoods really, really well. I worked a lot with like the Marina West neighborhood, and I remember on my last day as a beat coordinator before I became a detective, they gave me like a plaque of appreciation just for my efforts there. And I thought that was really cool. And that stood out to me because that was the first time I got, not actual recognition, but I got called out by the public and just, thanked for what I did, and it just made me feel good about my job. So that was a cool one for me.
That's awesome. Very cool. We got one from Rose. Rose asks, what do either of you recommend that residents do to protect ourselves from package deliveries being taken?
We actually, I don't know if anybody knows this, we tried to get it out there, but on our website, oxnardpd.org, we have all our crime prevention flyers, and we've got, I want to say, over 32 different types, English and Spanish. And one of them in particular is mail and package theft. And one of the things we tell people is, if you know there's going to be a specific package that, high dollar value, or that somebody would covet it, and you don't have a place where you can put it, to hide it on your porch, get a P.O. box, have it delivered there. There's also, if it's from Amazon, they have lockers. I believe it's Whole Foods that has those lockers there. I know they do that for other different stores. Also, there is actually it's like a locking box that you could put at your front door, and it's open to where the postal worker can put the package in there, and it locks immediately, and nobody can access it except for you. You have the key to it. So there's different little things that you can do. I have post office box. If we know that there's like checks from our bank that we want, I know not everybody uses checks anymore. We do sometimes, but if you know something like that is coming, your stimulus check, the P.O. box would be the place to send it to. And you can go there, and it's probably not going to be broken into, and it's a safer place. But otherwise, just monitor when those deliveries are coming, so you can make sure that you're there or have somebody pick it up for you.
And I've heard also, and I'm sorry if you mentioned it just now and I didn't hear it, but also our friend Justin on Facebook it suggests sending it to your place of employment or having it delivered there.
Yes, you can, obviously with the permission of your employer. Some of them don't want you sending that there, but like here, I'm pretty sure I could do it, but if any time that you can have access to it right away and you're able to secure it yourself, that's the best thing.
Awesome. And if somebody is a victim of package theft,
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
I'm sorry, my Alexa thinks I'm talking to her. I'm sorry, I guess I said awesome. If somebody is a victim of package theft, if they send you like the Ring video, we're kind of backtracking a little bit, but that's not the first step they should do, right?
No. They should make an online report, because right now our response times are a little bit long, and it's mostly because we have so many more calls for service, and our officers are trying their best to get there, but it's a lower priority call. Not that it's not important, but it's a lower priority call, and they have to go to the higher priorities, kind of like, the ER. So they should go online, and you're showing it right there where it says file a police report. Click on that. And as long as they don't have suspect information, they can upload, photos maybe, and they put it in there. We get those reports. If they have suspect information, they know who it is, clear face shots and everything, call dispatch, make that report. And again, we get those reports and we'll look into them. And you can always call us too and ask us questions.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, looks like Joanna is also saying another option is to ask a neighbor, if you have neighbors that you trust,
Yes.
to keep an eye out. Neighbors are, I like to say, like, neighbors are the best home security systems, aren't they? If you have a
Yes.
good relationship with your neighbors. Um, I know we don't get to choose our neighbors a lot, like we don't get to choose our family members, but um, if you do, that's asking them to keep an eye out, I think is good, or even having it
Yes.
delivered. If your neighbor's works at home, maybe ask if you can have it delivered there.
Hmm.
All right. A lot of people frustrated about fireworks, and we totally understand. Um, so, with a few moments left here, I got one more question here, it looks like, and then we can kind of start to wrap it up. But what about vehicles blocking alleys behind residences? What's the best way to address that?
Again, that can be reported to the police department. There's a hotline you can call for illegally parked vehicles, and we have traffic service assistants who would go out and issue citations if appropriate, or go out and try to find registered owners and have them move their vehicles. That can be reported through the non-emergency line or through the hotline as well, which I believe is on the website.
Awesome. Thank you. And um, just to kind of wrap it up here, is there if there's anybody out there who's thinking about a career in law enforcement, we'll just go one at a time with you. What kind of advice or any words of wisdom would you have for anyone considering this as a career?
I would just say make sure your heart's in it, and that if this is something you choose to do, really invest yourself in it and put forth as much effort as you can. It's a difficult career, especially right now. Things are a little bit rough, but the people who do this job really do it for the right reasons, and just make sure you're one of those people, and be prepared for a tough road as far as the training and the process to get hired on. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of effort.
Well, from the female point of view, get in shape. It wasn't, it, I don't know how to say it. It was not impossible, but it was pretty tough, especially for somebody like me who didn't come from organized sports. We didn't have the time moving around so much. I could never be in organized sports, but make sure to have that strength up, especially push-ups. You're going to do push-ups until you pass out. Just make sure that upper body strength is there, and you just got to keep going. Any cop will tell you, never give up. Never give up, because if you start giving up in the beginning, if you're actually in a fight for your life, hopefully you never have to be in that situation. But if you ever were and you give up, it's all done. Never give up, ever, 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 if it's truly what you want. And like, Detective Utter said, if your heart's in it, then great, go for it. And you know what, you can call up and ask for any officer to help you out and give you advice. If you even see one of us out there driving around, just, flag us down. We'll give you information. We'll tell you anything you need to know.
And I know neither of you are with like personnel, but do you know what the requirements are in order to be able to apply?
I believe you have to have a high school diploma, degrees, highly desired. I know bilingual, highly desired. But other than that, I mean, obviously you can't, have a felony record. Drug use, it can't be recent. I don't know the specifics on like marijuana now that it's legal. When I first started, you couldn't, have used marijuana. Any prescription type drugs. Obviously, if you have any domestic violence in your past, you might not be able to. And I think that's all I can remember. Not too much has changed.
And if anybody does have any specific questions, if you're serious about a career with our department, feel free to call that non-emergency number anytime, I think, throughout the week, at least Monday through Thursday, and ask for the personnel division, and we'll be able to answer any of those questions for you. Well, Detectives Walker and Utter, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and everybody at home that's been interacting with us here on Facebook. We tried our first live Q&A last week, and it was earlier in the day. It looks like a lot more friends have joined us here in the evenings, and I think we're going to make this a weekly thing. So, yeah, we'll have different divisions on. I see a question about the traffic department. as well. Yeah, maybe we'll do that next week. We'll be back with another live Q&A here on Facebook. And just before we say goodnight tonight, I just wanted to thank everybody out there who has stopped by our Facebook page or any of our social media. I know I've seen over the past few days in our direct messages on Instagram, I've seen a lot of really nice, unsolicited, just positive messages about your support out there in these times of civil unrest. And just know it doesn't fall on deaf ears. We hear you, and we thank you and appreciate you for all of the support you give us, not just on social media, but out there in the city whenever the officers have contact with you. And I know it's just so much appreciated, and we rarely get to say it back to you guys. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you, Property Crimes Detectives. And if you have any further questions, go ahead and ask them here in the chat thread on Facebook, and we'll try and get to every one of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.